Hi everyone, I'm back again with another video today on using the brand new Craftin Desert Divas Halloween scene stencil. This time I'm going to show you how you can create this background and lift up some ink through the stencil. So the first thing I did was I used the large inside scalloped rectangle die to do some die cutting. This is where I'm going to make my scene. So I die cut a piece of black cardstock and I'm going to use the outer portion for my frame. And then I die cut the same die with a piece of white cardstock, and I will be using that for the inside background. Now I also went ahead and stamped out some of those little guys from the Zombody brand new stamp set. I colored those in. I didn't put that on camera because it's very simple coloring that I did, nothing fancy. And this video is all about the stencil. And I did just fussy cut around the top of those little guys to create kind of a half scene. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I am taking some black soot distressing and I am going to coat this white insert that I'm going to use as my background. This is just plain white cardstock. It is heavyweight and it's going to hold up to the water I'm going to spray on it. Now I'm using distressings here. You're going to need to use an ink that is reactive with water. This is the only one I know of, but if you have another one on hand, you could certainly use that. Now once you start using distress ink and you start layering it up, as you build up that color, your fingers can actually move around the color and leave fingerprints on them. I always have lotion on my hands, so that seems to really aggravate the distress ink. So I just put down a piece of scrap cardstock to hold on to. That's why that's there. Now once that is completely done and I have saturated this cardstock with the ink, I'm going to go ahead and overlay the stencil. Now this is the Halloween stencil, brand new this month. And you can use it either way. So I am going to actually use this with the house on the right hand side and the little tree on the left hand side. The card I made the other day, I did it the opposite. And I will leave that link in the top right hand corner where I show you how to do the embossed resist technique with these stencils. So I'm going to position that exactly where I want it. I've got a piece of scrap cardstock behind this just to catch any extra water that's going to come off. And I'm going to tape this down just so it doesn't move on me. I have a tendency to knock things around when I craft, so if I can hold it in place, I try to do so. Now once that is taped, I am going to use clean water and just spray this over the stencil. Now I got a little liberal here. You don't necessarily need that much, but just make sure that you get it nice and wet. I'm going to let that sit for just a few seconds and then I'll overlay paper towels right on top. I'm not going to move them around at all. I'm just going to press down and soak up all that extra water. You really don't want to do any rubbing around or anything because then you're going to move that water underneath the stencil. Just make sure you lay it over the top and press down and soak up the water. You can give it a little rub on the paper towel, but just don't rub over that stencil. So after that is complete, and I've got up all the ink that I can. You could do another spray if you wanted to, but mine came up pretty easily. I did move quickly. I didn't give that ink a lot of time to dry, so it came up nice and easily for me. I pulled up that stencil, and there you can see that background where I had the stencil down, left that nice dark black cardstock, and then I've got a grayish background to start with on my sky. So I went ahead and used my heat tool to go ahead and dry that. It gets a little bit wet underneath that stencil. It's not going to be a perfectly crisp line, but that's okay for this technique. Now to make that sky, I'm going to go ahead and put the stencil right back into place where I had it before. I did dry this off and clean it off, so it's perfectly clean, ready to go back on and completely dry, so it's not going to disturb that distress ink. But now I'm going to start inking up the sky and all the little windows and things. Now I just went with some purples and blues, but you could really go into depth here and create that scene if you wanted to put like some yellows in the windows, some browns on that little driveway that's coming down, but I'm just going to go for an overall look here. So I'm starting out with some dusty Concord and I'm just patting this down into place. I want kind of a not so much of a smooth look, more of a textured look. So I'm just twisting and turning and pressing down. Then I'm going to come in with some peacock feathers and press that down too. Now again, I'm just pouncing up and down here. I am not rubbing over this because I want that nice textured look here to differentiate from the black background that's already on there. And I pulled that up and it shot out, but now you can see I've got that great background. It's very subtle, but it really packs a punch on your card. Now I decided to go ahead and overlay this again, and now I'm going to use that stencil as a mask actually. I wanted some stars in my background and my sky background, but I didn't want to get any of that on the little house or the tree or the tombstones. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and use this as a mask, and you can do that with your stencils. So I went ahead and used a little bit of white acrylic paint. I am going to just add 1 squirt of water to this to kind of let it get a little bit more runny here and a little bit more translucent. And now I'll just dip my brush in that and make some splatters on the background using that stencil as a mask. And then my stars are only going to be in the sky, which is just a great and fabulous technique, and it's very quick and easy to do. Now, if you wanted to, you don't have to thin your white acrylic paint down to make stars. You can leave it more of a thicker paint and it won't be so translucent, but I wanted those stars to blend in a little bit more. Now I'm also using my paper towel there to just cover up those windows. I didn't want to get any splatters in those, so I just quickly masked those off with my paper towel as I was working. If you want to get even finer splatters, you can do what I just did and take your finger and use the brush to kind of flick it on. And then for your larger ones, I just tap right on my paintbrush and pretty close. Then if you want to pull it back, you can get some finer splatters, and you don't have as much control when you pull it back. It just kind of lands wherever it wants to. With it closer, I get a little bit more control of where those dots are going to go. Now, once that was completely finished, I cleaned up my stencil under some running water with just soap and warm water, wiped it completely down, and there I had my background ready to go. When I came back, my paint was dry and it was ready to be put on the card. So to put this card together, I have an A2 top folding white card base. I went ahead and put down the black frame with just double-sided adhesive straight to the card base, no dimension on that piece, and I'm going to do the same thing on the background. Now, because I use the same die on the insert and the frame, everything's going to go right back into place, and it's going to be that die cut inlay. And it makes for a very nice, cohesive, and flat background on my card. Once I had that down, I went ahead and added some fun foam and double-sided adhesive to the back of those little zombies that are coming out of the ground and the little dogs running off with the leg, which is just hilarious. But I went ahead and put some fun foam on the back of that. And again, I die cut this from that same die, so it's going to pop right back into place too. It's just going to be a little bit higher up from the background and the frame, so it's going to stand out a little bit more, which is exactly what I wanted. Now, to finish this card off, I popped up the sentiment, "Somebody told me it was your birthday." This is going to be a set that my son loves to give to his friends. They're kind of getting older now, so they're kind of out of the cutesy image phase. They're more into this gross zombie phase. So this set is perfect for my birthday cards. That finishes it off for today. I'm going to leave you guys with these pictures of the finished card. On the left side of your screen, you'll see a few different links you can click on. The top will take you to a video of mine you might enjoy watching next. The bottom left will take you to my blog where you'll find the supply list for this card. And the bottom right will subscribe you to my channel if you aren't already. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!